Why would you ever need your car to be on the internet?
Why do you need a stove? Why do you
any-
need your stove to be on the internet?
I don't need my refrigerator on the internet. Like, I don't need any internet connected devices except for the ones that I specifically want, like my phone.
Made Daily. Hello and welcome to the Made Daily podcast. I'm John Michael Thomas.
I'm Pierre Hegeman.
Made Daily covers our favorite online stories from tech to social media.
Our expert thoughts and opinions about information security, website design and development,
and other random stories from the internet. This week's episode is made possible by Cinemechanics, the premier camera and lens rental house. When you're shooting your next film, commercial, or popular streaming TV series, Cinemechanics will ensure your project stays next level.
And Made Daily version 5, the all-in-one secure website builder with built-in data collection tools and secure customer portals.
And one of our way back internet favorites, Zay Frank and his True Facts series. Got your true facts right here.
They're true. Alternate facts.
So our first story is coming from PC Magazine. Everybody should start looking out for this. Watch out for this Gmail takeover scam. So what's happening is Gmail account recovery attempts and subsequent customer service calls that sound a little too perfect.
Yeah, so this is basically kind of riding along all the AI deep fakes that have been getting more and more popular. People are using it to impersonate support staff from Google and most likely other companies as well, and calling you and trying to get you to give up account credentials to them so they can log into your accounts and steal all your stuff. Google will never do this. Google will never call you. They will never send you unsolicited account resets. They will email you if they see suspicious activity on your accounts, and then it's up to you to take action on that. If somebody calls you claiming to be Google or Microsoft or Amazon or anybody, it is a scam. Do not answer, or if you answer, hang up. Don't give them any information. That is basically it. And I would say by far, the best way to prevent any kind of account takeover is to put two-factor authentication, which means in addition to your password, you have another thing. So it might be an app on your phone. It might be they call you on the phone and say, here's a number that you need to type into the website when you log in. Or the best and most secure are these things, this little hardware keys that you can use. You just plug it into your computer and you touch it, and it basically makes your account very, very, very difficult, if not impossible, to phish and steal.
It is definitely alarming when it happens.
Yeah,
I've had it happen, and I'm like, talk to a family member and be like, hey, did you log into the account? And no, and then luckily there's two-factor on. You can get in and change your password, but it's alarming. And then now, sometimes we don't want to change our email address, but you should change. So what happens if something like this were to happen? You can assume if you got two-factor on, it's pretty low risk. But do you recommend, Pierre, that we go change our email or change the email or password at the account that's been trying to be penetrated?
You should change your password. I don't think that unless somebody has gained access to your account, and then if that does happen, Google does have, and Microsoft, they both have kind of mechanisms that you can go through to prove your identity and have them, restore access to your account. If you see suspicious activity, if you're notified, somebody, you get an email from Google saying there's been multiple attempts, or you start getting two-factor notifications on your phone, always a good idea to change your password. And then, of course, I always recommend using some kind of password safe, either one that you have or like a service like 1Password, although they've been hacked a couple times, so maybe that one. Or, all the browsers have password safes built in too, so just try to use something that you're not going to write down, that's not super simple, because the problem there's, well, we can talk about passwords another time, but there's issues with the way
Mm-hmm.
that passwords
Mm-hmm.
are password policies are set up for like companies and stuff. We'll talk about that another day.
So this kind of thing is called a spoof or spoofing. And luckily, this was an IT consultant who caught this one. Sam Mitrovic had a real life encounter with this scam. I think that's part of the cool thing about IT and tech is people are, vigilant together on this stuff. Um, to avoid using scams, follow some of the advice Peer gave. Also, just verify your email address. Like when it's asking you two-factor, that's a new thing now, which companies are just mandating that you do this because it's really the best protection. And then scrutinizing any unsolicited communication from tech companies, which can be tough because they can look like they came from a company. And sort of the way I look at it, I think, is if it's a big company, I'm I tend to be a little bit more suspicious. I might take a smaller company for granted, but you should always think if something looks off, and sometimes it's hard to know.
Yeah, especially with a, a lot of the newer, more targeted uh, phishing attacks. They can look very, very close to the real thing, and then of course this specific incident had an additional. Um, this is almost what you call spear phishing attack, where it's not like a broad, um, they're sending emails to everybody and just trying to catch who they can. This is a targeted thing because what happened to this guy is he got an email and then he got a call about the same thing from an automated, an AI-backed system. So it can seem pretty legitimate, but just remember, Google's not going to do this. So don't pay attention if this happens. And the other thing you can do, and this can be kind of a pain in the butt for sure, but when you get an email, if and you see a button or a link, personally, I never click links out of emails unless it's coming from somebody I trust, and I oftentimes will verify, hey, did you send me this, right? But if you're clicking a link, make sure that it's going to the domain that you're expecting. So if you're expecting to go to Google, it should be google.com. If it's not google.com, if it's Google anything else, don't click it, right? Same thing, because there's so many domains, it's pretty easy to get something that looks similar. It might be Google with three O's or Google with a zero instead of one of the O's, right? Hopefully, Google, having basically all the money in the world, has locked up most of the domains um, that are close to their stuff, but it can be anything. So just pay close attention to those domain names. It can be challenging.
It's kind of interesting too is, some of these companies, if you call a legitimate place to do some tech support, so you got to call and get your, high speed internet worked on or something. It's interesting how they will verify your phone number, your email address, and all of that. But you don't really like have a code that you can give them. Like when
What
you get in an Uber, that you're supposed to tell the guy, you who you're talking to, and that you're getting in the right car and check the license plate number. So I mean, there's been times where like people don't know they're calling into the wrong place too.
Yeah, I think the best way to prevent that is to um, Google or
Yeah,
look up the phone number of the place you're calling. Don't trust, if you got a communication and you're not sure if it came from the organization, don't trust the phone number in the email, but go to the internet and look it up, right? And hopefully it'll be
that's a
correct.
that's that's a great point. Check, don't trust, verify who you're contacting. Same thing with a text message too.
Yeah, because one thing it occurs to me that one of the things that's really challenging about email, especially, is anybody can present as if they're sending from anybody else, right? It's very, very easy to manipulate in the email who it looks like it comes from, right? So in order to detect that, you kind of have to look, you have to be able to understand what an email should look like and kind of go in there and see, okay, what server did it come from? And most people aren't able to do that. So I would say just don't trust email because you never really know who it's going to come from. So if it's coming from, you know, somebody who you don't know, or if it's coming from an organization, yeah, just assume that it's suspect. You know, I would say trust but verify, but in this case, don't trust and then verify. Yeah, because it is pretty easy to spoof emails. Um,
And
and
texts
yeah, well, texts it's even easier because we get text from random
all the time,
all the
especially
time.
especially lately, getting, you know, last
Yeah.
chance to donate money to this candidate. You know, I get like
Oh.
one of those a day these days. Okay, let's kind of move on to kind of adjacent story. This Kia web vulnerability vehicle hack. So millions of vehicles could be hacked and tracked thanks to a simple website bug. Researchers found a flaw in Kia web portal that let them track millions of cars, unlock doors, and start engines at will. In the latest plague of web bugs that's affected dozens of car makers, this is coming off of Wired. Great,
Yeah,
great, great website, by the way.
I think that that's a bit of a misnomer. I don't think it's a simple website bug. It's a major flaw, right? And the one of the things that they could do with this, it basically they were able to get dealer access to all of the Kia APIs. They could change um, the registered owner, so then they could take over communications. They could as far as the dealer is concerned, the attacker was the owner. And the way they did this was it was a flaw in the Kia API system where it did not authenticate new registrations for dealer accounts. So anybody, if you knew the way the API was structured, anybody could go in and create a dealer account, and then from there they could access the dealer APIs and search customers, search cars, search by VIN number. The article did say license plate number, but from what I could see, it was only by VIN. And then, of course, with the Kia Connect, which is turned on for all cars by default, even if you don't sign up for it, they were able to, like you said, they were able to go in and lock cars, unlock cars, lock people out, start cars. I mean, it's pretty crazy. I first of all, I don't. Why would you ever need your car to be on the internet?
Why do you need a stove? Why do you
Any,
need your stove to be on the internet?
I don't. I don't need my refrigerator on the internet. Like I don't need any internet connected devices except for the ones that I specifically want, like my phone. And even then, I'm not real sure. But yeah, this was it was a classic case of authentication. Well, authentication bypass, but really there was no authentication at all. And once they got access to the dealer system, they had access to everything. It's almost like getting system credentials on a computer. And the way they figured this out was
Yeah,
by
I'm curious. I'm curious. I want to unpack how did they get in?
well, so they had the app for the Kia app, and they had somebody I think had one of the researchers had a Kia and was able to log into their customer portal. So they can, and one thing that you may not know, if you own or are developing a website, is that anybody can look at the traffic that the browser is sending back and forth to your website, and they can manipulate that very easily. So what these guys did was they compared the traffic between the app and the website and found different API endpoints, and then they looked through the JavaScript code to find out how the website was interacting with the API. There's so many. This is a very common thing where like the website isn't almost even isn't a thing anymore. It's just all JavaScript code that interacts with backend APIs. And if you're not really careful about your authentication, it's very easy to introduce these kind of vulnerabilities into the systems, right? So what they found was the the system calls that the website was making to the APIs, and they were able to replicate that. And once they had registered their legitimate dealer account, they were able to just send whatever calls they wanted, completely bypassing the app and the website. So
Mm.
again, if you're a developer and you're working on websites, never believe that your code is private, right? Unless it only runs on the server, right? So server-side languages like Ruby or Rust or Go that run only on the web server. And even then, I I would assume I would encourage you to assume that somebody has access to your code and knows what your system is doing. So never rely on something being unknown to prevent an attack, right? So that's called security through obscurity, and it doesn't work. It's only a matter of time before somebody figures
Mm.
it out. And JavaScript is literally downloaded to the browser every time. So anybody can look through it and identify everything that your application is doing, and that's how they found this vulnerability. And not all end users, right, are trustworthy or um, savory, I guess. There's a lot of people, unsavory, seedy characters out there who are trying to manipulate your stuff. I mean, you can look at our systems. We come under attack constantly, every day, all the time. So, and that's true for everyone. So, if you're developing an application, make sure your JavaScript doesn't have any secrets in it. That's
The other thing too is a lot of developers are self-taught.
yeah.
So it's sort of like you can just also unfortunately assume that at some point, unless the person's really senior or and is really good, they are going to reach their limit as to what their knowledge is. And so um, from my experience, the only way to like deal with this is to have a team of people checking each other's stuff, inspecting other people's code, and then being mindful and watching and monitoring things, and then being ready if something needs to be fixed, right?
Yeah, or to you can mitigate this risk by transferring it to somebody who's it's their only thing that they do. Their only job is to, this authentication piece or whatever. I mean, Kia is big enough that they should have had a team available to, to have a security architect take a look at the portal code. So I don't know what happened internally. I can kind of imagine what might have happened internally at Kia, but it was definitely a fail as far
Yeah.
as
And
security
this
goes.
and this again was found by security researchers.
Hmm.
So we got to kind of this whole thing of protecting our own selves again, which is, I guess, a good thing. If I figure it out before the hackers get there. Let's talk about using PDF forms on websites. I am personally, this is one of my biggest pet peeves. And it's a terrible user experience, and it's everywhere still. And there hasn't been a great way to deal with this. And I'm going to just rant a little bit on this. So, it can be as stupid as you need this just to like complete some application at the bank, or you want to apply for, a grant, or I don't know, a application to the gym or whatever, and you download the PDF. So if you don't have a computer, how do you fill out a PDF on a phone?
I mean, it's
You
possible, but it's not
it's
exactly a comfortable experience.
And then if you do have a computer and you do get the PDF downloaded, I luckily know how to use Acrobat Reader. So I can open it up and fill it out digitally and save it and put the signature in and email it back to them.
I mean,
A lot
Preview
of
can do that. A lot of the programs can do
Yeah.
that now, to be fair. But then what do you do with it, right? You save it. Now, how do you get it back? Do you
Well,
have a
then you're
printer?
well.
Does your
That's
printer
the
have
other.
ink in it?
Right. I mean, unless you're in this space or you have used computers for your business, do you have a printer at home? Probably no. So it's a big pain in the butt. Like, what are you going to run down to the library to print this out? And it seems like with all the technology that we have, this should be solved. The other thing that happens a lot with PDFs is the person who made the PDF didn't make the PDF correctly. So you go in to fill out stuff and there's form fields missing and all kinds of crap. And then you're back to trying to figure and print it out. And this can take hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. And so, it's a terrible experience. It's an unnecessary number of steps where if you had an interactive form, you could just fill the thing out in real time. So there are pros and cons though. With an interactive form, I got to trust that the person I'm sending the data to is entrusting this and taking care of my personal information. That is the same too if I'm emailing them a PDF, if I'm putting personal information on there. So one thing we should just kind of discuss is,
just
yeah,
one,
go ahead.
one
Yep,
point
jump
about
in.
that.
Yep.
So yes, you're always trusting the end provider, whoever you're sending that data to. When you have a form, though, oftentimes you're also trusting somebody else in the middle, right? Because the provider, unless they're hosting
Right.
their own website or their own forms, there's going to be a service provider in the middle there. So you have to be able to determine whether or not that service provider is trustworthy. Are they keeping your data secure? Is it just your name, or are they asking for sensitive information like social security number or payment information and stuff like that? So it can be a lot more challenging when you start adding in these third parties as well. And just to your point about trusting when you're sending a PDF over email, don't send sensitive data over email ever. Email is not secure. It's not encrypted. Don't do it. Just don't. Yeah. So if you are trying to get sensitive information to a service provider and you can't print it out and they don't have a secure form, maybe walk down to the office and tell them in person.
So where's the line where you say, okay, this is too much? So if you're putting your name and your email, your phone number down, and you're telling somebody, hey, this is a kind of, garage I want to have built or whatever, or I'm looking for this type of car, I would say generally that's okay. You haven't given them anything that somebody probably doesn't have. But now, if you have to put a social security number in,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe start giving out your full address,
Yeah.
where's
So address is kind of rides the line on that for me. For most people, it's public. You can get anybody's. I mean, if you know an address, you can get the person who lives there just from the county tax records. That's very simple. Um, I would say social security number is definitely uh, over the line. Any kind of payment information, bank account information. I would start saying when you start getting into things like security questions, like if anybody's first of all, if somebody's asking you for like sibling names or
yeah,
maiden
red
name,
flag,
that's very
red flag.
suspicious anyway, right? So but that information would all be pretty, it's sensitive. It's really, if if you if you didn't feel comfortable going to the top of the roof and shouting this information out, then I would. Then it's probably not a good idea.
There's just guys on roofs yelling random numbers. 763
I mean, there was that LifeLock
81.
guy, right, who put his social security number on the truck, and then of course he immediately got identity theft.
Identity theft.
Good times.
Yeah, we got to just make a shout out to Ben Vanderberg for writing a great article on Medium about this. PDF forms on the web shouldn't waste my time. Another great place to find information. Medium. And another place that this is really prevalent is schools,
Mm-hmm.
or signing up for your child's athletic stuff. I mean, think about how you give your personal contact information, emergency contact information, and people really need to start taking this more seriously. I want to walk through another site, which is really common which is this is our pediatrician. And there's some good things and bad things about this site, but you know, all these patient forms are downloads.
Yeah.
Boom. So like, and again, I can't fill this out digitally. I have to print this out. Who's going to print this out? So it's sort of
And
like pointless to even have it on the website personally. Like this is a risk assessment. Who do I send this to? And it doesn't tell me where to send it to. I just have to assume I will bring it in, right?
so one thing to remember about any kind of medical care stuff too is that all of this information is falls under a regulation, right, called HIPAA, the Health Insurance Portability and Privacy, no, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, right? So they're they're not allowed to uh, store data, health-related data unencrypted, right? And so asking you to download this and email it to them is a violation of HIPAA, and you know
And they're
can
not. They're saying print it out and bring it in,
sure
which is what you should do, which is the right protocol.
if you can.
Yeah. But it's just that the point of like, why isn't this stuff just, why aren't we at a place now where people can have digital forms and just get this stuff done before you even go into the appointment? A couple other things I wanted to talk about with this site too a little bit is, and this is something we talk about a lot here is multiple destinations, and this kind of goes into this talk earlier about spoofing,
Mm.
and so there's some risk here. So we have their website, it's at their domain, but if I need to, I want to schedule an appointment, pay my bill, fill out a form, talk to a nurse, let's see what happens. So schedule an appointment. Now I have a web form. So I have some web forms on the site. Pay my bill online. Oh, I got to go to another place. And now I'm going out to securebillpay.net with the very long string. At least they have the logo on here. I feel somewhat trusted.
Don't trust that. Anybody can get that logo, right? So, like, because you clicked the link directly from their website, sure, you can go ahead and assume that it's correct. But if you got this in an email and clicked the link and came here, you would have no way of knowing if this is legitimate or an attack, right? That's the problem with this kind of system. When you have all these third-party providers all across the internet, basically unbranded and not under the same domain, it's very easy to get phished. And they're training their customers to expect to go to other unbranded sites that aren't under their URL, and it's just bad security practice, and I don't think it's a good customer experience either.
That makes a lot of sense. And then I guess, and then also there's a separate login for a patient portal, which this portal doesn't even allow them to have their website. So again, if you're trying to manage your security as a business, the problem is the system's essentially broken. It's really not available for you to do it in the best manner. But like technically this needs to be, I mean, in this, they want you may be putting in your credit card information. And so, yeah, if somebody wanted to be malicious, got a hold of information from them and started emailing me, said, hey, your bill's due or whatever. If I don't know how to look for this stuff, I could be giving my money to someone crazy. Who knows who it is?
Where I often find a security flaw is in password reset. So if they have a way for you to log in and you go in and try to do a password reset, if their system tells you whether or not you've put in the correct email address, then that is a way for an attacker to identify every email address that is legitimate in the system, which then gives them a database of people they can email to send them their phony payment link and say, hey, you have a bill, log in here to, or you need to update your credit card or whatever, and they can start harvesting credit
Yeah.
card information. Which is why, if you can, it's better to have all of your key services, your patient portal, your payments, under your domain, under one trusted system, so you can tell your customers, if you're not looking at mycompany.com, you're not looking at me and you shouldn't trust it.
Yeah. Because you're verified on the way in. You got to have a login and password to get in. You then you're going to a secure place. The other thing about, just circling back 1 second, about PDFs is they're not really great for people with disabilities either. They're not set up to be read by a screen reader, and it's hard to navigate them with a keyboard. And again, these are all things that I think, these are topics that we discuss because it's time that we start to figure out how to solve some of this stuff. And
Well,
there's just ways to make technology better and usable for everybody. And
yeah, so using a PDF for an interactive form is kind of like using a blog for a website builder, right? It's
right.
not, PDFs
That's
were
true.
never designed for that. It's a printing format. It's a
Blogs were
way to
not
take
designed for websites.
exactly. It's a way to take a document and send it to your printer and have the printer render it properly, right? It was never meant for collecting information. So
And
PDFs
it's
are just
also
bad for that.
and it's also like, who faxes that stuff in to people anymore? I always thought a fax was always a little bit sketchy too. What if I get the wrong phone number and I just sent my tax returns to, the wrong place?
I actually
So
still will fax. I have a fax machine and I will use it if the service provider has a fax number, because fax is actually point to point, right? My phone goes to their phone and it prints out on their side, and there's nobody in between there. The phone company is, but they're not, there is encryption in place there, right? Usually. So the to me, a fax is actually more secure than email, and it's more convenient than
interesting.
walking it down. But
Interesting.
it's getting less and less common for companies to, and a lot of people are moving to electronic fax, like software-based fax, and then you got the same problem, right?
Which
It's
I
not.
never, and I never could get
Yeah.
that to work. And you can try to like take a picture and place it in notes in your iPhone, and then try to. It's just a big pain in the butt. I got another pet peeve that I came across on the web when I was looking through my figuring out who I was going to vote for this election year, and I came across one of our. You go in and you have all of your district judges, and most of them are incumbents, and you don't know anything about anybody anywhere. And if somebody wants to like really solve this problem and get people to put their information, that would be really helpful, because researching candidates is a mess. But what happened was, I go to this judge and I got to share this, and I was like, uh-oh. Here. There's another person behind this picture here. This poor guy. He's running for Hennepin County District Court judge, and I was just like, oh no. Like,
Yeah, he probably
you
just.
can't
Yeah.
So whoever updated the website, or maybe it
That's a
was
shame.
self, but I applaud him for having a website, because a lot of people don't have a website, and it's just having a little information about him, and was really nice. But you also got to get the right people in place, and this is a pet peeve, because I think that people think because it's a website it should just be really easy to do. And I think there's some sort of again, assumptions that technology is going to be just easy, and a lot of times it is, but you don't you use iMovie to make home movies. You don't use iMovie to necessarily make a feature film. So if you're a business person, you should get the right people to do your thing. And I'm sorry for this fella running for district judge to call him out, but I
Yeah, it can be challenging, especially when they don't, if it's a small campaign, they may not have any budget at all to hire a professional. So then they're kind of on their own. And you got to have something, but and
I,
that's a case where I'd at least check it. That probably it looked like because I didn't see that when I pulled up his website.
mm.
So it's probably a responsive device kind of thing. So that's actually a really good point. If you are building your own website and your website doesn't provide the tools in the inside, like our system, right, has a slider so you can see things across different widths. Go to your browser and just pull it in, pull it in and out just to make sure it looks good. Because he could have caught that probably if he would have seen. Now whether or not his CMS gave him the ability to change that is a different question. But yeah. We can look at so we can find him this section, right? This wow image, whatever that is. And then you can see her here, right? So she's underneath. I don't see where his image is coming from.
So what? So she's a Wix,
She
probably a template image.
yeah, it looks like
What's probably occurred is whoever put this in just drug a new image on top of the one that was there and didn't actually click on it and do a replace. And he
maybe
happens to be skinnier, so
right.
he's not filling
Yeah,
the space because she looked like she was more of a square or a 4:3 aspect ratio.
you could if I make it
Yeah,
shorter and go to responsive, yeah, you can see her there.
yeah.
So so there it is. That's how it that's how it happened. So
Which is a shame.
it's a shame. Should have done it in Made Daily. It would have been easier.
Well, at least he's paying for Wix. It's not the free version with the ad at the top. So that's and like I said, I think he was one of the few judges who actually had a website, and so much
Yeah,
respect for doing that. Sorry that it's got a little bit of a blemish and we're picking it apart, but
I don't
that's
know
what we
that that's
do.
really his fault. That's probably a bad UI on the template that he had, right? It wasn't clear that he had to replace the image that was there. And I don't know if they have good responsive tools to check that. But yep.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's DIY, but it's also you know a profession. There's a whole profession around this stuff. So you know, but again, I think that video would have came in handy.
Yeah, and like you said, at least for me, if a candidate can't even be bothered, like that thing where there's an image and that's not
No.
gonna put me off voting for the guy. I mean, I can't vote for this guy; he doesn't live in my county. But um, uh, yeah, if you can't even be bothered to put up a website at all, I'm not gonna even consider voting for you because yeah, like come on, it's very minimal effort. So
But
it's
there
good
isn't
that he
even
did.
but there isn't even like I mean Ballotpedia or someplace. I looked for a while trying to find like an aggregate or a Minnesota thing. There's nothing.
NPR is pretty good. They have um, they have profiles on a lot. I forget that she's whatever Werther. She's always talking
Kathy
about it in the
Wurzer.
morning. Yeah, in the morning. She's yeah Werther. They're the caramels. She's not a caramel. She's a yeah. She's always advertising their election thing and good information there.
Hmm. Let's talk about our way back random thing from the internet. Do you remember Zay Frank Pier?
I do true facts about
Truth.
owls.
Zay Frank started this video series 2006. I feel like it was even before that. He always put these 3 to 5 minute website videos together, and they were like commentary, songs, games, challenges for the viewer. Some were really funny, some were a little off color. Um, and he's back doing it again. Actually, And he posted the whole thing up, and now he started doing them again, which is pretty cool. It's like, why not? You know, we're remaking all these other shows and series, you know, but he was one of the originals. So what do we got here for a link? Let's see.
Here are true facts
funny.
about the owl. And they look like a cotton ball that grew a face and legs. Owlets are born without flight feathers, and because they are vulnerable, they camouflage themselves as muppets. Some owls bob their heads up and down in order to maximize their depth perception. Try it right now. Focus on an object and bob your head up and down. That's right. Keep bobbing your head.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that's a good one. So go watch his stuff because he's hilarious.
It was funny because, you know, in the digital world and interactive world, he was kind of like a celebrity to people, you know, and which was also kind of funny because he was like, everybody knew who he was. So
does he talk like that in real life? Is that his real voice?
I don't think so.
Yeah, probably
I think that was his, you know, his actor voice.
Sure.
Hello. Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us today. And if you want to check out any of the stories or topics or watch more of Zay's videos, please head over to the madedaily.com/blog, madedaily.com blog. And if you'd like to have us, if you have a story you'd like us to talk about or reviewed or want to leave us a comment, please do.
And don't forget to subscribe.
Until next time,
stay secure.
Roll the credits. Made Daily.